the link and give it to him. Yashmita. Okay, now this is working. His mic's working, see? I don't know why mine wasn't, but okay, so you want.
Can you copy this?
Where do you want that? No, I'll use okay, copy, control, command C. I'm sending it to you. You have to copy paste it in. Actually, yes.
It's right already.
Huh?
It's right. You can use.
Yeah. So,
It's right.
okay. Hi everyone, my name is Priya Krishnan, and I'm really pleased to be doing this live streaming session with you and the masterclass for Creche in the Box. I thought that I would give you a little bit of context to myself, the company Clay, and what is Creche in a Box, and then talk to you about what it means to set up a creche and why this is important. So I am the founder CEO of Clay Schools, and I set up the company 7 years ago in 2011. I set it up primarily with the intention of enabling women to go back to work. And that came from the fact that I was a young mother myself. I had access to high quality childcare when I was working in the UK. And I saw women around me needing high quality childcare if they wanted to continue working. And this was specifically with the teams that I had in India. So I decided to move back, set this up. 7 years in, we are 120 centers, about 7,000 children across our centers. And, we work day in and day out to support these kids, support these families. And we've had close to 15,000 families pass through our network over the last 7 years. In addition to this, we hire about 2,000 women who look after these children and provide secondary income into these families. So where did Creche in the Box come about, and why? What is Creche in a Box? Last year, there was a maternity bill that came out, which essentially said that any company with more than 50 employees had to provide access to a creche to its employees in such a way that women in those companies could walk to the creche at least 4 times a day. This just meant that it was a multitude of companies, because pretty much every company has over 50 employees within its mix. And hence we said, as against going through the exercises, setting this up ourselves, city by city, company by company, can we find like-minded entrepreneurs who can help us set this up? And we do have the know-how, the operational know-how to do this. We do know how to run these, control these, watch for health and safety aspects, etc. And what we really wanted to find, and we're hoping to find many of those among you, is somebody who was like-minded, believed in the cause, which was enabling women to go back to the workplace, and was motivated and passionate about setting this up. What we would bring to the table would be clients, because we have a ton of corporate clients who are looking for the service. We would bring the know-how, as I mentioned, and hence that's what comes in the box. You have really the ability to get daily plans, how to execute them, how to measure them, how to test what's going on within the creche, the infrastructure associated with setting up the creche, and the day-to-day monitoring processes associated with it. So what does it take to set up a creche, right? So if we were to say that this is an opportunity for each one of us, what does it take? So one is it's a 95% operations job. So really just enjoying doing the same thing day in and day out and doing it predictably in outcome-oriented fashion is absolutely critical. The primary two things, if you ask me, are the real estate, the quality of the real estate, and then the second is the staff that looks after the children. In a sense, if we get these two elements right, we have the raw material to put together a creche. So when we talk about real estate, what we're looking for is an environment that is safe for children. There is access to the outdoors. There is enough indoor space, that the environment that the children are in serve as a learning environment itself. So, when a child walks in, they know predictably where to go. It's a safe place. They feel like they are themselves in this environment, and they're excited to come in there day in and day out. So let's talk about first the environment, the space itself, and then talk about what goes into the space. So when we talk about the space itself, what we're looking for is typically a ground floor environment, looking for something that has easy access for us to take very young babies, because we're looking at children between the ages of 6 months through 10 years in these creches. So, just given the nature of the industry, you have to think of what happens in the scenario should something go wrong. And there, having access to ground floor space so that you're able to evacuate children easily is absolutely critical. Having light in these environments is absolutely critical. Ensuring that there are no health and safety hazards around the space, like you're not next to a cafeteria, there are no gas banks around there, there are no pollutants that are getting put into the space, that it's not next to a car park. These are important criteria as far as the space is concerned. What is the bare minimum space one would look for? We use a thumb of rule of about 40 square feet per child. So if you're looking at setting up a creche for about 50 children, you're looking at least 2,000 square feet of carpet space to set up this creche. And then what goes into the creche, right? So key thing is that these are demarcated spaces, because these children are very young. They are dealt with pretty much in 6-month groups. So if we're talking about infants, we're looking at them between the ages of 5 months through the time that they move, which might be 10 to 14 months. And then we're going from 14 to 15 months up to about a year and a half. And then they progress in a yearly fashion, because that's when they move into the rhythm to go into a school. So each one of these spaces has to be demarcated, and there has to be resources that are appropriate to keep children engaged in these spaces. And that is something that we do for a living, and we would help you with, should you choose to work with us in the Creche in the Box format. The most important aspect, if you ask me, what is the single most important aspect of running a creche, it is the people that you hire within the creche, and how you train them, how you assess them, and how you provide ongoing feedback. So when you're hiring people, I think it's critical to hire people who are able to communicate and have a genuine love for children. It's one thing to say I like children, but another to hang out with them day in and day out, caring for them, providing for them, etc. So hiring criteria really would be: is there a genuine love for children, and is this person got a spark to make that child feel creative on a daily basis? From a training standpoint, we've seen that drip feed works better than a one-time training effort. So, what you really want to do is to make sure that they know what the routine for the day is, and make sure that they're doing that first consistently day in and day out. When the child comes in, how do they get into the system? What happens right after? Conducting of a group activity, individual activities, playtime, food, etc. So the routine is the most important for these teachers as well as the children. And once they've set into the routine, then getting into inputs around, here are the pedagogical inputs, here is what is going right, here is how children learn, etc. is critical. While this seems counterintuitive to how teachers are traditionally trained, given we're looking at staff who's coming on board and providing largely care-oriented services, training them around the day-to-day routine is absolutely critical. And then, as they've seen children on an ongoing basis, talking to them about how pedagogical inputs come into play becomes secondary. And again, we have a very detailed training plan for the staff that would work with you. In terms of the quality of the staff, or the sort of people that we would look to hire in the centers, most mothers, and I'm saying this more as a mother myself, before someone who's run a childcare business, the first thing that a mother looks for is this place good enough for me to leave my child? Is it uh, equal to, and I'd be delighted if it was better than what I provide at home? And is the person who's going to spend, my child's waking hours with them equipped to deal with my child? Is that person someone who's caring, really has a genuine interest in my child, is communicative with my child, is communicative with me, and that we share a tripartite um, responsibility. That is, the institution, the teacher, and the parent together have a responsibility towards the child, and that's the joint partnership. So that the quality of hire is not, does the teacher have the ability to speak English? Does the teacher look smart? Is she presentable? What you really want is someone who gives the mother comfort that she has the ability to engage with the child and tell her the good and the bad as far as the child's concerned. So, if we focus on these two aspects, and then put the childcare facility in place, what Clay would help you with is bringing the clients, because today we work with over 200 clients who are looking to have access to childcare provisions across the country. So from our perspective, bringing the business to you is a lesser challenge, but making sure that you're the right individual who is motivated to do this and has earned the stripes really to be our partner is more important. How do we intend to do this? We really intend to look at individuals, assess them both from a entrepreneurial perspective. How motivated are you to do this? Why is this important to you? Your operational expertise. Your financial ability for us is a lesser of an issue. As we start, maybe we would look for people who have the financial ability to commit to us. But over time, for us, the motivation to run this and the operational expertise is important. So we plan to solve the financial puzzle ourselves and try and provide funding for this, so that women don't have. We also have access to a different strata of women who can help set these up for us. So that is it from me, and I will stop now and I will pause to take questions. And if there are additional details that you would need, you could write them to me at priya@founding-years.com. Thank you very much for listening in. I'll look forward to your questions. We plan to, today we operate out of 6 cities. There was a question from Anisha. Thank you for that, Anisha. Are there specific cities that you'd be operating in? We plan today to operate this in any city that our corporate clients want us to. And so far, we've seen demand largely in Chandigarh, Jaipur, Mangalore, Mysore, Trivandrum, Cochin, etc. So the way we intend to do this is to talk to our corporate clients, and depending on which cities they want to service this in, put out the message in those cities looking for partners, and then go through the partner selection process. It would be good to know which city you're in, and I'll definitely stay in touch if there is demand that comes up there. We'll give it another couple of minutes to see if there are additional questions. If not, we'll wind down. And if there's a follow-up session required, etc., we'll work through that. Hi, I have a couple of questions. How to start my own preschool and daycare? I'm from Chennai and I want to do something, so planning for a daycare. Um, Essentially, I mean, when you want to start a preschool and a daycare, I explained that really location is probably the most important criteria, and then the people that you're working with. that you would hire into the childcare facility. And both of these we can help you with. You're welcome to write into me, and we can provide basic support if that's what you need. And if you're more interested in the Creche in the Box, we can engage with you on that. I had earlier mentioned my email ID. It's priya@founding-years.com. So I look forward to hearing from you, Abhinaya. Vinita asks, how do I start a preschool? How much investment is required to start a preschool? From where do you get approval to start a preschool? So the way to start a preschool is, actually, unfortunately, in India, there are no guidelines currently. And some states have lower KG and upper KG governed by the state government, and in other states that's not the case. So it's really a state by state norm. Outside of that, to operate a preschool, you need a shops and establishment license. And if you're doing LKG and UKG, you must check with your local block education officer if there is a specific preschool license required. On average, for a preschool of a capacity of 50 to 60 children, you would look at an investment of somewhere between 25 to 30 lakhs in terms of capital expenditure for resources, furniture, etc. And possibly an additional loss funding of about 15 to 20 lakhs, depending on the locality that you're in and how quickly you're able to fill out the center. So, an upfront outlay of about 40 to 50 lakhs is what you should anticipate to set up the preschool. Samudra has asked, I have plans to start a daycare and hobby center, but I seriously have no idea from where to start, what should be considered, what are the formalities to be done. I request you to kindly guide me on this. Starting a daycare center also requires only a shops and establishment license, and it requires that you follow all the shops and establishment rules of the state that you operate in. In addition to this, again, if you're doing LKG and UKG as part of the curriculum, so if you're looking after children over the age of 4 months, over the age of 4 years, then you have to understand from your local state whether there is a requirement for an additional educational license. There are 4 elements to a hobby center / daycare. The real estate. I would harp over and over again, finding the right spot, which is visible, which is safe, which is accessible, doesn't have one-way restrictions, etc., is absolutely critical. The people. So finding the right set of people, training them, monitoring them, giving them feedback is the second aspect. The third is the curriculum or the SOP in terms of what you do on a day-to-day basis with them. How do you evaluate the children? And the fourth is in terms of parent interaction and parental feedback. Because what you will realize as you operate this is that, the person who's consuming the service, which is the child, is different from the person who's paying for the service. So making sure that the parent understands what you're doing on a day-to-day basis is an absolutely critical part of especially a childcare facility. A preschool, maybe parents expect, over 2-3 hours something happens and some periodicity of feedback's okay. But in a place where the child's spending 9 to 10 hours, what feedback you provide and the frequency at which you provide it becomes absolutely critical. And all 4 of these aspects, Clay can help you through the Creche in the Box model. And if you're interested, write into me. I'm also happy to share any other details that you want. Shefali asked whether should we start with rent? How much should be the maximum rent? How much to break even for a center? How many years? So yes, most places are available on rental unless you own the property. Typically, if you pick the location right, and it is a location where there is a high density of working parents, and you have the right people within your center, my anticipation is you will break even somewhere between, that is, you'll be able to recover rent plus the salaries of the people, somewhere between 12 to 15 months from the time you start up. So the absolutely critical criteria are the location you pick. Is this in high density apartment areas? Are these people working people? Are they migrants into the city? and then how accessible is your childcare, and then what is the quality of the facility. Parents buy visually, so when they walk into the center, they have to feel like, wow, this is a place I want to leave my child in. And then your people have to convince them that it's a place which is safe, and your child will be looked after. So if all of these are in place, I think you would look to break even somewhere at about 12 months. But a brand like us, which has over time been established, we typically open centers and look to break even between 5 to 7 months. And again, if you were engaging with us on the Creche in the Box, we would also provide that support in terms of fill out of the centers. Jyoti is asked how to start my own daycare and also wanted to open my own drawing classes for little children. I hope through the remaining answers I've answered this question, Jyoti, but if you feel there's anything specific you want to know, then I'm happy for you to write into me, and I will respond to specific questions. How Anisha has asked, how do you start your own daycare center, and also wanted to open my own drawing classes. So, drawing classes are enrichment classes, and if you're capable of, conducting them yourself, you could do it in the same facility. So these don't tend to be the ones that you should depend on as far as, recovery of rent, etc. is concerned, because if the space is your own, of course, you can do what you want. But they are more discretionary, whereas childcare is a requirement. So when a mother wants to go to work, she has to find somebody to look after her child. Whereas a drawing class tends to be more, my child has some free time, or it's the summer holidays, etc. And so I'd like my child to spend some time at a class. These are important, but these can be over and above what you do within a preschool or a daycare, and shouldn't be the mainstay of your business model if you're looking to make this a serious revenue spinner as far as you're concerned. And if you don't own the real estate, you're paying rentals, and you're paying people to do it, then definitely you should see how you can utilize that rental space for a higher number of hours. Shakun asked, are there any courses to learn professional ways of managing tender kids? Shakun, unfortunately, in India, today most of the courses start at 2.5 years. We do run a training institute for children under the age of 6 months up to 10 years. And the training, like I said, is in small modules so that people can learn, practice. And this training institute is based out of Bangalore, and we conduct trainings across the cities that we operate in. So if there is a specific city that you're in and you want to be trained to be a teacher or to work as a provider in one of these cities, please do let us know. A couple of anonymous questions. What are the biggest challenges one might face in starting up your own daycare? We look after the most prized possession of a parent. So the biggest challenge and the most gratifying part of it, right? It's a function of how you look at it, is the fact that you have parents who are emotional on both sides. So, depending on what goes on a given day, they will be really thankful for the support you provide. But at the same time, something were to go wrong with the child, they also come back and act a lot more emotionally than you would if you were buying a product from somebody. The other challenge is that most of these parents are first-time parents, don't have the support structures of their own parents or family advising them on how to raise their kids. So as a result, you tend to become that support system, and a lot of things that you would see with second-time parents or parents of older children, you will experience them for the first time with parents. So being patient with the parent body is absolutely critical. Hiring people who are motivated to do this, it is a highly challenging day in, day out, being around children, managing them, keeping them happy, getting them to learn. So finding people, if you ask me, is by far the most important and the most difficult part of this. So we tend to hire young mothers, older women who've had children who are going into mainstream schools. We also tend to hire people who are in other industries and don't want to work night shifts, etc., but like being around children. Nurses, not all nurses who are trained want to work with sick children. Some of them want to work with happy children, so we tend to hire those. But making sure that you find the right set of people, if you ask me, is the biggest challenge in the space. Where did you find inspiration for this? I found inspiration in the fact that I'm a Sena mother because I work. I have two lovely boys, and I ended up being a better mother because I work. And I feel that there are more and more mothers like me who like their adult conversation time, and then they like their daily time with the children. And so this just fulfills both sides to me. And I wouldn't have done it if I didn't find somebody who could look after my kids like I did. So a credible childcare was absolutely critical for me. I also feel very strongly about women going back to work, and I think it's unfair that they have to take a break to look after their children, and those options don't exist. So the employment aspect and enabling a lot of women to come back to work with a firm like us. We have a lot of women who change career tracks. They've worked in all sorts of industries, food, retail, telecom, who come and join us. And these might have been after 3-year breaks, 6-year breaks, 15-year breaks. And I think it gives me a real big high to see that, they're able to go back and they are better mothers, better spouses, better citizens because of the fact that they're mentally challenged and are keeping themselves occupied. So I hope you find the motivation too. And if you do have a motivation, then we would love to partner with you in the cities that we're looking to partner in. I always had an idea, but no one to encourage. Can you guide me on how to start in the near future? This is the reason why we're doing this, Asifa. We would love to try and help people who want to do this. We struggled doing this on our own. We've learned some lessons, and our hope is that we can help other people learn those lessons quickly. So our aim is to try and provide as much of the support as possible, whether it is on how to hire, how to identify space, what works in terms of marketing, what is the know-how in terms of running the center, etc. What we really need is a like-minded partner who's motivated to do this. What else can we start for kids as you've been dealing with them? So I think there's a ton of things that could be done with urban kids, and it isn't just hobby classes or a childcare facility. I think just the fact that just simple things like tinkering studios would be great for kids, for them to build things and deconstruct things. Reading clubs would be great for children. Just good old-fashioned libraries would be good for children. So there are lots of opportunities from a neighborhood perspective that I think a lot of us have grown up with, but our kids don't have the access to. So all of these exist as opportunities for people to start up businesses in. And I think urban parents are a different category to, non-nuclear families who live with joint families, because their parents really struggle to try and find avenues to both spend time with children, but also find ways to keep them occupied. And this doesn't mean you have to create something that keeps them going from place to place to place, but is there a method by which an amalgamation of services could come under one roof? And these could, like I said, range from doing things, from learning new skills, learning new languages, because I think that's an incredible way for kids to learn. I mean, when we were growing up, we learned multiple languages just because of the sheer ecosystem we had, but kids these days don't have that. Breaking things, making things. So all of these are opportunities, but as long as they're within one roof, just given how much parents have to travel from pillar to post in these localities. So for me, I think doing something in a mall, but justifying the malls in real estate costs makes an immense amount of sense. What is the initial capital required? I think somewhere between 30 to 40 lakhs is what would be required to start a childcare. Are there any educational licenses required? No. For a childcare facility under the age of 4, you need a shops and establishment license, and in states where LKG and UKG are governed by the state, you would need an educational license in those places. Mm, Somebody has asked, as I am running a daycare, how do you deal with fussy parents? I think, I would say that most parents are reasonable parents and they really want the best for their child. Uh, you would have, I would say, somewhere between 5 to 10% of parents who are demanding, and that might be because they don't know what else, what is the right way to bring up a child. So part of it is to work with the 90% who are reasonable and make sure that you're transparent with them and explain to them what's going on with their child on a daily basis. Tell them when things go wrong, because child could fall at home, they could bump themselves at home. What parents don't want to know is that you're a place where the child will never get hurt. I think it's absolutely, you know, no abnormal expectation of a place to say that nothing would happen to my child. What they want to know is, if that happens, how do I communicate it, and will you tell me, and will you tell me how you're going to fix it or prevent it from happening in the future. So open, transparent communication, but also communication which seems like it's reflective and remedial is critical. With the fussy parents, sometimes it's just to the ones that are the 5% who are being unreasonable and say, feed my child every hour, or I want you to, feed my child an absurd amount of food, or want you to not teach my child, and all I want you to do is make him sleep. And that might not align with your philosophy, and sometimes it's better to say this might not be the right place for you and looking for something else to do. It is do what you require might be a better option. I'm not saying that you must tell all fussy parents to leave, but first trying to understand whether what you offer is aligned to their expectation is critical, and then talking to them about it is equally critical. um, I'm just waiting to see if there are any more questions. Um, so thank you. Somebody said that they're very proud of the work that I'm doing and the lovely gesture towards women and children. I feel equally proud. I think the world of children is fascinating. If you like children the way I do, you see them making a million connections a day, and that makes you excited. I think it's a wonderful world to be in. It's way better than hanging around with adults all the time. Yes, I love what I do. I love children, and I love enabling women to go back and pursue their dreams. So thank you for that compliment. What are the basic do's and don'ts of getting into business? I think we're brought up not to take risks, right? And that's even true for me. When I started this, my whole thing was, what if it fails? What if it doesn't work? I think the first thing is to say I have the conviction that I can do it. I have the right know-how. I have the right empathy in the business that we're talking about, and I have the ability to face off with parents and level set with them. If those exist, then you have a good starting place to look at, right? Do's and don'ts in business is, I think, just putting good money after bad money is not a sensible thing. You must say at what point will you cut your losses. So it is, given it's a high fixed cost business, you have high rentals and you have salaries to pay. Knowing at what point this won't make sense for you is really, really critical. If the product is good, and there is a need for the product, ideally you should do it. So getting into business is easy, because the fact is, if there's a need for a product and there is a reasonable product, you will always have demand for it. The piece that you really need to work around is to say, how much, what is my propensity to fail at this? What will happen if I fail at it? And when we answer that question, actually, most of us come up with nothing. Worst case, you will be miserable at doing whatever you did, and you can go back to doing whatever you did before that. The point is to say, are you in that life stage where you can take that risk, what that risk means for you, and what are you capping out that risk at? And that's a very personal decision. And once you've arrived at those answers to say, have I come up with a product and is there a need, is probably the most important. Mm, what would be the minimum investment required? Like I said, about 30 to 40 lakhs is reasonable. You would look at about 25 lakhs in terms of fitting out the center and about 15 lakhs of loss funding till you break even. Do you suggest starting it on a small scale from home? If you have a home that is very accessible, if you have a home that can be used as a commercial establishment, if you have a home that is not in an apartment which is going to disturb residents, if you have a home that is, has the appropriate exit mechanisms for young children, absolutely start it from a home. A lot of daycares run from independent bungalows. But if you're saying I have an apartment and can I do this for 3 or 4 kids on the side, while there is no law that prevents you from doing this, I think from just a day-to-day running of this and making sure you're able to attract people, manage them, etc., becomes difficult. So if you're looking to do this, I think finding an independent space where you can engage children is really critical. So like I said at the beginning of the session, that the space becomes one of the most important criteria. What if I have no experience of working before? Can I do this? You run a home, you manage your kids' schedules, you manage the home's finances. I think a lot of us take these for granted and assume that this is not work. India, there is 350 minutes of unpaid work for most women. And as a result, we look at just completely deconstructing what we do on a day-to-day basis, which help us in setting up businesses like these. I think if you have an operational bend of mind, specifically for a childcare business, it's very, very important that you like getting into the details. You like going and sitting in classrooms. You like watching the kids. You like recording things. You like reflecting on them. You like playing them back. All of those things are critical. If you have detail-oriented bent of mind, then that is, I think, pretty much what it takes. Previous work experience in the space is not an imperative. Okay, folks, I think we're about out of questions. So thank you very much for joining in and for taking the time out. I apologize for the technology glitches earlier. I think it's given we run a brick and mortar business, my technology challenges are a little more than I would like or anticipate. Thank you for listening in. Really appreciate the patient listening. Once again, my email ID is priya@founding-years.com. That's years as the plural, years.com. And you're welcome to write in if you're both interested in Creche in a Box, as well as just in talking about what it means to go back to work. Thank you very much.